Hello, my friend. I'm going to read this book, The Kitchen God's Wife, by Amy Tan again. Yeah, I've been crazy about this book lately. I really enjoyed the story. It let me see what the life is like in the 60s, or maybe 50s, or even earlier than that, in China, and 40s of the 20th century. I think I'm still on chapter 12. Let me think. Okay, yeah. The next day I told him I was too tired to go for a drive, so he asked Jaguar, and they drove off like happy boys. Late at night, Wenfu came home, a sulking look on his face. "So you had a good time?" I said. He would not answer me. I asked him why he was angry. He still did not talk. He lit a cigarette, poured himself a glass of whiskey. Oh shit, what the fuck is that? That's a bug or something, like a flying bug. Oh damn. Damn, that's scary. That's so scary. That's okay. It's dead. And then I thought, strange, I did not hear that noisy car when he came back. I looked out the window, walked to the door. I looked down the dark pathway, toward the road. No car. "The new car, where is it?" I asked him. I sat at the table with him. I watched as he drank more and more whiskey, smoked more cigarettes. Then finally he announced, "That car is worthless," and he cursed its worthlessness. "May the dog mother rot with the dead devil." The next morning, Hulan told me what happened, what Jaguar had told her. They had driven the car out to the countryside just beyond the south wall gate. They went over a little hill, down a long narrow road, and into what Wenfu thought was an open field. He drove fast to chase a rabbit, pretending the rabbit was a Japanese airplane. But the rabbit was faster, turning this way and that. It ran up a mount and the car followed. That's when the car's stomach landed hard on a pile of rocks, balanced like one turtle on top of another. He tried to drive the car off. Jaguar got out. He tried to push it forward, making the wheels spin faster and faster, making the engine roll louder and louder until, wow, black smoke poured out from under the hood and flames burst out. Both of them jumped back and stood there, watching the car burning on top of a pile of rocks. The flames rose higher, so they backed away, and then, as they searched for means to put out the fire, they saw the rough land all around them, lit up by the fire. They saw the field was covered with these same humps of rocks, hundreds of turtles stranded in a sea that had lost its water. Before Hulan told me any more, I knew what Wenfu had done. He had driven his car into a poor village cemetery. Hulan crossed her arms. Of course, I scolded Jaguar. How careless he was, not guiding her husband more carefully. I should have cried when she told me Wenfu had ruined that car. I should have been crazy with anger that he wasted my 400 yuan that way. Instead, I was laughing. Hulan thought I had gone crazy. I was laughing so hard, tears fell from my face. I had no breath for words. So I could not explain how I felt, how I could see the look on my husband's face, standing in the cemetery, realizing where he was, how I could see the little car burning up on a pile of rocks, the same way mourners send gifts to the dead, how I was now so glad for that dead Cantonese pilot riding off to heaven in his claimed back car. That same morning, Hulan and I went into town. I put on my long green coat and everyday shoes, because it was 3 or 4 li to get to the middle of the city. A li, that's maybe half of one of your American miles, and I had to walk that distance. I wasn't like you, getting into a car to go 2 blocks to the grocery store. Along the way, I stopped off at the post office to send another telegram, this time to Peanut, who was now married to a rich husband in Shanghai, the one the fortune teller found for her. I told Wang Betty to write the same message as the last telegram. We are soon Taonan. This time, however, I added, sent 400 yuan direct to Jiang Weili only. Betty did not ask what happened to the other 400, but I think she knew. After I sent the telegram, Hulan and I headed to the market square to do our grocery shopping. It was very cold that morning, and I remember looking at the gray, cloudy sky, saying, maybe it will snow again. Hulan looked up at the same sky. Not enough clouds. In any case, I heard that snow comes here only once or twice all winter, not one day after the next. We arrived at the marketplace. It was perhaps 10 o'clock, and the vendors had been there at their stands since dawn. They were now eager to do a little bargaining to warm up their blood. On the outskirts of the marketplace, young boys crouched in front of vegetables piled neatly on the ground, and in the marketplace itself were rows of tables covered with buckets of tofu and weighing scales, piles of sweet potatoes and white turnips, baskets of dried mushrooms, pans of live fish, freshwater soft-shell crabs from the south, and wheat egg and rice noodles. Already people in a stream as long as a dragon were pushing past the stands, puffing little clouds of cold breath. At that hour of the morning, everyone was happy, not yet tired from the day's work, already thinking about the evening's meal's ingredients. Hulan and I had followed the sweet smoke of roasting chestnuts, and we were now standing in front of a sidewalk vendor. He was stirring a basket filled with dark nuggets. It was 3 hours since we had eaten our breakfast, so Hulan and I agreed a handful would be good for warming our hands. You've come just in time, the vendor said. I added the honey just half an hour ago when the shells cracked open. He poured 6 chestnuts, each into 2 newspaper cones. I had just peeled one open, was about to put the steaming chestnut into my mouth, when a shout in the street, Japanese planes, disaster is coming, and then we heard the airplanes, faraway sounds, like thunder coming. All those people, all those vendors, they began to push and run. The basket of chestnuts tipped over. Chickens were squawking, beating against their cages. Hulan grabbed my hand and we were running too, as if we could go faster than those planes could fly. The airplane noise became louder until they were over our backs, roaring like elephants, and we knew the bullets and bombs were coming. Then everyone around us began to fall at the same time, just like wheat in a field blown down by the same wind. I was falling too. Hulan was pushing me down, but because my stomach was so big, I had to lie curled up on my side. Now we are dying, Hulan cried. My face was turned to the ground, my hands over my head. If people were screaming, we could not tell. The planes were roaring so loud above us, Hulan's hands were shaking as she held my shoulders, or maybe it was my body that was making her shake. And then the sounds seemed to be going away. I could feel my heart beating fast, so I knew I was still alive. I lifted my head just as others lifted theirs. I felt so lucky. I felt so grateful. I could hear people crying, "Thank you, Goddess of Mercy. Thank you." Then we heard the airplanes coming back, and all those praises to the goddess turned into curses. We lowered our heads, and I thought that those curses would be my last memory. The planes flew back and forth, and people's heads were going up and down, as if we were bowing to those Japanese planes. I was so angry, I was so scared. I wanted to get up and run, but my body was too numb to rise, and although I was fierce in my desire to live, my thoughts were only of death. My thoughts were only of death, perhaps because people around me were now crying and chanting, Amitabha, Amitabha, already calling upon Buddha's guide to the next world. I thought, have we already died? How did I know? It seemed to me my breath had stopped, yet my thoughts were still racing. My hands could still feel the cold, hot ground, and I could still hear the airplane sounds, which now seemed to be moving farther and farther away. The chanting stopped, but we all stayed down. So quiet, not moving. After many long minutes, I heard somebody whispering. I could feel people around me uncurling themselves. Someone was mourning. A baby was crying. I did not want to look up to see what had happened. Hulan was shaking me. Are you hurt? Get up. I could not move. I could not trust my own senses. Get up, cried Hulan. What has happened to you? Hulan was helping me stand. We all rose slowly, the same field of wheat, now unbending. And we all whispered the same thought. No blood. The Hulan shouted. No blood, only snow. At least that's what she thought it was at first. And because she said that, that's what I thought at first too. Big flakes of snow covered the street, lay on the backs of people crouched on the ground. And when I looked up, I saw the snow falling from the sky, each flake as big as a sheet of paper. A pedicab driver in front of us picked up one of those flakes, and it was a sheet of thin paper. He handed it to me. What does it say? The paper showed a happy drawing of a Japanese soldier with a little Chinese girl sitting on his shoulders. Japanese government, I said. If we do not resist, good treatment will be given to everyone. Nothing to fear. If we resist, trouble follows for everyone. And then I heard a Chinese soldier screaming in the street. He was kicking the paper snow like a crazy man. Lies, lies, he cried. That's what they said in Shanghai. Look what they did to us. This is what is left of our army. Only rags to mop up China's blood. An old woman began to scold him. Be quiet. Behave. You have to behave, or we'll all be in trouble. But the soldier continued to shout. The old woman spit on his feet, picked up her bags, and hurried away. Now everyone began to talk. Then others began to shout, and soon the whole street was filled with frightened voices. I tell you, that day, when this fear sickness spread, well, everyone became a different person. You don't know such a person exists inside of you until you become Taonan. I saw people grabbing food for food, stealing things. Vendors walked away from their steaming pots. I saw fights and arguments, children lost and crying, people pushing to get into a bus, then emptying out of the bus when they saw the streets were too full for anyone to move forward. Hulan asked the pedicab driver in front of us to take us home, but as soon as he got off his seat to help us in, a bigger man knocked him down, jumped on the pedicab, and drove off. And before I could even say, how terrible, a beggar boy ran up to me and tried to tear my purse from my hands. Hulan beat him off. Suddenly, someone cried, run, run, and everyone behind this voice began to move forward, a crowd of people coming toward us. A barrel of ice and fish was knocked over, as if it were a light vase. A woman fell down and cried, such a horrible cry, lasting for so long until it disappeared under hundreds of feet. Hulan twisted my arm, made me turn around, pushing me along in the same direction as the crowd. And then we were swallowed up in the wave, carried between other people's shoulders. I could feel elbows and knees punching into my back, into my big stomach, and then the space around us grew even tighter, and we were squashed together, moving in one breath, one current. Hulan had one hand on my shoulder and was pushing me forward. Hurry, go, hurry, go. She murmured behind my back, as if she were praying. Hurry, go, she said with each step. Suddenly the crowd burst onto a wide boulevard, and I was no longer crossed between people. People were now running in different directions. This way, Hulan said. I felt her hand slip off my shoulder. Which way? I called back to her. Hulan, no answer. Hulan, I shouted. I turned around and people rushed by me, but there was no Hulan. I turned forward again. She was not there either. And in that crowd, all alone, all the fears I had been holding inside fell out. I started swimming against all those people rushing toward me. Looking right and left, down below, she was gone. Ma, I was crying. And I was amazed that those were the words coming out of my throat. Ma, as if she could have saved me, the mother who had abandoned me long ago. I was so stupid that day. I could have been knocked over, stepped on, and killed like so many other people. Someone could have knocked the baby right out of my body. Yet I was walking through the crowd, calling for my mother, looking for Hulan. If you asked me how many minutes, how many hours went by before I was found, I could not tell you. When my senses came back, this was all I knew. I was sitting on a bench, staring at a chestnut in my hand. I had found it in my hand. The same chestnut I had peeled before the airplanes came. I wanted to laugh and cry, that this was what I had held onto when I almost died, and I was about to throw it away. When I considered I should still hold on to it, these are the kinds of important thoughts you have when your world changes so suddenly. The city gone mad. Hulan disappeared. Should you keep a cold chestnut or not? Sister, I hope you have one for me. It was like a voice waking me out of bad dream. I saw Hulan riding up to me on a pedicab. Can you imagine? She was joking after a terrible disaster, joking when I had thought she was dead. I ran to her with a happy cry. Getting fast, she said, and held out her arm to pull me in. I threw the chestnut away, then struggled into the little back seat. Hulan pedaled off. She handed a stick back to me, the leg of a stool or chair. If anyone tries to steal this pedicab from us, beat them away, she shouted. You have to do this. Understand? Beat them away. Beat them away, I repeated. My heart was pumping fast. I looked to the sides, behind me, raising the stick at a man who was eyeing me. It was not until we were almost home that I thought to ask her how she had found the pedicab. What a bad world, she said. When we ran into the boulevard, I could finally breathe and see again. Right away, I saw the same man who robbed the pedicab from the driver who was standing next to us. He was pedaling back, just a few feet away. I didn't even think. I just ran over and pushed him off the seat as hard as I could. When he fell, I jumped on and pedaled away to get you. I saw your green coat, saw you were looking for me as well. But right before I called out to you, at the same moment, someone ran up to me. Wow, he was waving a stick, ready to strike me, and the man before me had done. But I was ready. When he swung, I grabbed the stick, then used it to beat him away. She waved her hand at me. One of her fingers looked broken. You see how bad the world has become? She said. Now I'm that way too. That day we left Nanjing. So you see, in some ways I have been lucky in my life. I was never really Tao. Only the next level before that happens. Of course, I was scared enough to forget all about the telegram I sent Peanut. I forgot all about my 400 yuan until it was too late. It's intense. It's so intense. This story is. It's hard to imagine. Look at this. Look at this peaceful neighborhood compared to the story I just read. Two extreme wars in China. We're so lucky that we live in a very peaceful era now. No war, at least in China. Not even a crime. Cameras are everywhere. Look at this. Security cameras are everywhere. So no one is really doing any crime here. Very safe. Alright, thanks for reading with me. I'm going back home and have breakfast with my wife.